Morning, y'all. Time to start getting stuff put back together for this axle upgrade on the XJ. I've got the differential carrier here. We're going to put this Spartan Locker in that this morning and get it put back in the axle. We're waiting, hopefully the new steering knuckles will get here today. That'll get us going good. Anyways, the first step in this to put the locker in is going to be to remove the spider gears out. So the first thing we got to do, you got a roll pin in here, we got to knock it out. It's going to be close as to whether this pin will come out or not without pulling the ring gear, so we'll see. Hopefully it will. If not, we'll have to pull the ring gear. But on the back side of where the roll pin is, there's a little hole there, so you can stick your punch in there to tap it out. So that's what we're going to do. And I seem to have bottomed out my punch, so let me go get a longer one. I'll be right back. All right, now we've got the longer punch. So that roll pin will just come out the bottom there. Then we'll have to get that cross pin out of there and put some more gloves on. I had to take them off to set the camera. All right. So now we'll see if this is gonna come out or not. So this pin should move fairly easily. No, that's what I was afraid of. Okay. We're going to have to pull the ring gear off to get the pin out, which is unfortunate. A little more work, but no biggie. Takes an 11/16 socket. Before we pull this all the way off, I'm going to make a couple of paint marks so we can put it back in the same spot. Go. So before we go any further, since we're going to have to put all this back together, we want to take some brake parts cleaner and clean this ring gear and the mainly the holes in the ring gear for the bolts, and also the bolts themselves, so that we can put Loctite on them and get a proper torque on them when we go back together. All right. So those, by the time we get done doing the rest of this, the brake clean will be dried and we'll be good to go for putting the Loctite on them and torquing them back down. So back onto this. Now we can get the pin out. So it is not real tight in there, so sometimes it'll even push out with your finger, but this one's a little tighter than that. But just all right. We'll fight till the end. Alright, once you have that off, set it to the side. The new locker comes with new pin, but I like to keep the old stuff so that we can reuse it if we ever need to go back. So you take all your spider gears out. Like that. And then you want to double check and make sure, because there's going to be these little shims in there. And you want to pull all those out too, because I think one of these has it on there still. Yep. All right. So that's all out. Now we get ready to put the new parts back in. So you want to take these pieces here, and you got a little baggie here with all the little parts. Get a something to put them in here. There we go. So in the baggie you're going to have 4 of these machined parts and the springs, and then these little pins and a new roll pin for the shaft. What you do is you got to take the spring, put it inside there like that, and then put those in each one of these bores in this, and you'll see they push down. Then you take one of the little pins that came with it and you push this down and stick the pin in there so that it holds it down like that. So you can do that for each one of those. Install the side couplers into the carrier case. What we have here is some transmission assembly goo, and I'm just going to put a little bit on the teeth of this thing. You don't want to overdo it, but you want a little something on there. kind of give it some lube. So one of these goes in the bottom like that, and the other one will go in the top like so. And don't reuse the thrust washers. Those stay with your old stuff. Alright. So you got these spacers that come with this, and they go with the open side to the teeth like this. See that? That's how those go. And we're gonna put some goo on this, on these teeth, just to give it a little something. I mean, and like I said, we're not putting a lot on there, and we're using a little bit in here, and that's mainly just to try to keep the spacer where I want it while I'm putting it together. So this has got to go in here, and you've got to kind of jiggle wiggle it around to get both of those pins in, and then you can set it down in there like that. And then you're going to take your other one and do the same thing. And this is the part where sometimes it helps to have 4 or 5 hands, but this will slide up in here like so, and then get the teeth meshed in there. Alright, I think that I could actually pull 2 of these, the 2 bottom pins, and then rotate. Yeah, I'm gonna try it. I'm gonna pull the 2 bottom pins and then rotate this around. There we go. So you'll hear it click in, and now that those are in, I can move this around and show you what I'm talking about. So you got your pin you're holding in right there, and then you got the slot. That's where that spring-loaded pin is going to seat. So you've got to get 2 of them lined up and in there, and then you just pull these pins out, and you can see it's in its groove right there. So that's what we want. So once you get them all lined up, then you can pull the pins out, and they'll all be in their slots just like they're supposed to be. And one thing that's going to happen, it happens every time, is you got these center pieces that are going to be trying to get up in the way. You got to keep them kind of pushed back up in there. All right. So that's all in there. All that remains is to put the cross pin back in. So it's got to, you've got to line up everything. And you got the hole in that, so you got to line that up so that everything will go back into place. So that's get that started in its hole there. Now, that's what I was afraid of. You got to make sure this hole stays lined up so that you can get your roll pin back in. Can use a pair of needle nose pliers, kind of get it lined up, get it started in the hole there. Yep. Let me get the right size punch before I tear this up. Something closer to the right size anyways. And that's going to go on down in there until it bottoms. So and you'll feel it when it bottoms. Alright, now that that's done, so now all that remains is to put the ring gear back on and torque it to specs, which I'll have to move to a different part of the shop to do once I get the bolts started in there with some Loctite. So Okay, so I've got the ring gear is now torqued down. I had to take it over to the other vise on the welding table. The service manual says 70 to 90 pounds, so I torqued these to 80. Crisscross pattern. So we're good to go there. This is ready to go back in, but first I'm going to, I need to clean out the housing after, well, I need to knock the interaxle seals out, clean out the housing, put new interaxle seals back in, and then we'll be ready to put this back in. So let me get set up to do all that, and we'll be right back. Okay, now that we've got the carrier ready to go back in, we're going to replace these, we're going to need to replace the interaxle seals and then clean it up inside of this housing before we put the gear carrier back in. So we got, see right there, that piece of aluminum pipe there, and you've got the interaxle seal in here. Get the light set up. So this is your interaxle seal here. You can see somebody put some silicone around that, previous owner. And so what you're going to do is take that long piece of aluminum pipe or conduit, anything that'll fit through here, you push it up in there and you'll feel it when it's up against that seal, and then you just give it some taps and the seal will pop right out like that. So now we've got the old seals out, and we'll go ahead and clean all this up and then install the new seals. So let me get that all cleaned up and then we'll come back and install the new seals. Okay, we've got everything cleaned up and we're ready to install our interaxle seals now. And you can see there's still some silicone around here. It's down in the crack between the actual axle housing and the casting. It's not going to hurt anything. So what you want to do, I went ahead of time and put some assembly goo in the spring on each one of these. It's just something I learned a long time ago. Just helps keep the spring in place while you're putting everything together. Now, you want to take just a little bit of silicone and apply it to the outside of the seal. Very thin layer, just a smear. And that will ensure that no oil seeps through in between the outside of that seal and the housing. And like I said, you don't want to goop it on there because then it's just going to squeeze out. But you want to get a layer on there. And then you can take that seal and set it up in this hole where it's going to go. Now, you can stick a socket up in there and try to tap that thing in. That's kind of a pain that way. I bought one of these seal installer things here, so we're going to try it out. So you're going to stick that end in there, and then that goes up against there, and this end goes into the seal like that. And we'll tighten this down on there. Like that, and then we should turn this nut and it should push that seal on up into its bore there. Pretty as a picture, in theory. Make sure everything's squared up. Yeah, it looks like it. Move this light over here. Now we just back that off, pull that out of there. Yeah, now that's how it's supposed to look, right there. See, that's all the way down in its seat, ready to go. So now we'll put the one in the other side, and then we'll come back to put the diff in. The other side will be the exact same way, so we'll be right back. Okay, we've got both the inner axle seals in. So now what you want to do is get your gear carrier with the bearings and bearing races put on their correct sides like they came out, and slide under here, and you got to get it all back in place while still meshing the carrier gear or the ring gear with the pinion, and getting everything back in its slots like it's supposed to be. So in order to help us with that, we've got our clean soft-faced hammer, so we can give it a little tappy tap. We got the gear meshing. That's good. Get. Now you remember how tight it was coming out, so it's also going to be that tight going back in. You want to check from time to time, make sure things are going the way you want them. It looks like it is. Now we can spin that around on the pinion. It's a little better place to give her a whacker. That's looking pretty good there. Oh yeah, tone changed, so those are bottomed out where they're supposed to be. Take a look, yep. Everything's in there, it's all nice and tight. Oh yeah, that's looking real good. So now once you got that in there, you can get your bearing caps. Now I cleaned the bolts off prior to turning the camera back on, and I've got some medium Loctite already on the threads. And we're going to get up in here with these and put them back in their spots, matching your match marks up. And just start those in by hand. And you'll see right here we got our match marks matched up, so we know that's in the right spot. Grab the other one. And again, we've got our match marks lined up so it can go back in the same spot that it came from. Now, once again, get your socket on there, and we're going to torque these to 60 foot-pounds. Right. How about we swap places? Room for swing. And that is that. So we now have new interaxle seals and a locker, and all that's put back together. So once I get the axle shoved back in there, we'll put the cover on. I don't want to do it just yet because I don't have the steering knuckles yet to put the axles in. So one step at a time. We will throw this over here. We're done grinding and everything, so don't really have to worry about too much dirt or dust getting in there, but we'll just throw that on there for now, and we'll come back later and put the cover on. So let me get set up for the next task of the day. Well, that was the last task for that day. Had to go pick youngins up from school, so that was it. Appreciate y'all watching. Hopefully this video helped y'all out some, and the next one will be putting the new ball joints and the steering knuckles on, so stay tuned for that. Y'all have a good one.